made by my award-winning team in blue, the best team in the north. Should you require their advice, please feel free to approach either Giordano or, of course, Joel Viavattene, who no doubt you've met throughout the marketing campaign. Buyers, let me share with you now the following announcements, which in place to have you bid and buy with absolute confidence here today. The auction will be conducted in accordance with the rules, and any additional conditions are available for inspection before the start of the auction. The auction rules prohibit an auctioneer from accepting bids or offers for a property after the property has been knocked down to the successful bidder. The vendors have a reserve price as the auctioneer. I'll indicate bidders on request. The law prohibits false bids, prohibits major disruptions by bidders, and prohibits bidders attempting to prevent others from bidding, and provides for fines for such conduct. The rules permit for vendor bids. The words I'll use during the auction to indicate that I am making a bid on behalf of the vendor are vendor bid, and by law only I, as the auctioneer, can make a vendor bid. The contract of sale has been on display prior to today's auction. We call for a 10% deposit upon the fall of the hammer and the signing of that contract to take place here today, with the balance to be paid at settlement in 30 to 90 days time, at which time the vendor will provide the lucky buyer with vacant possession of the property. All in all, quite a straightforward document. Everything is in there, everything is quite clear. So buyers, it's with my highest recommendation what we offer for your consideration and competition here today. A great opportunity for you and your family to buy in this ideal family pocket, this ideal family home where we've got access to everything that you need for a great family lifestyle. Easy access to a plethora of parkland, easy access to transport in many guises, plenty of shopping options and plenty of schooling options, quality schooling options when it comes to both primary and secondary school. Add to that a great home on 450 square metres approximately of prime residential property, a free-flowing floor plan, that formal living up the front, flowing into that massive informal living area at the back, and of course that undercover alfresco area, perfect for relaxing or entertaining. And you have the ideal family package. The only thing that is missing is you and your family, and we can rectify that today by getting the sold sticker on the board. So if you would like to reserve that right, now buyers, is your time to do just that. Where can I see a fair and reasonable starting bid for 5 Narin Court? Who'd like to start us off, buyers? I don't mind the call. I'm in your hands. Start me where you like. Where can I see you start, buyers? Is this your moment, your time? At 720,000 is a bit light on, but I'll go with you at 720, and I'll welcome you and best of luck here today. At 720,000, perhaps round me off at 50. At 720 the bid. At 720,000, easy bidding at that. At 720, everybody's hands should be up at that level. At 720 the bid now. At 720,000, and I'll take 50 in the rise. At 720,000, fairly been offered now. At 720 the bid. At 720,000, if you're here to buy, there's the competition. The opportunity is still with you. At 720 now. At 720,000. First call at 720, are we done? At 720,000. I had 50 here, if you don't mind, I'll go with the high figure, sir. At 750,000. At 750, welcome and best of luck at 750. At 7.5 here. At 750,000. At 60 now, 60 there. At 70, at 770,000. At 770,000, 80 got. At 780 the bid. At 780,000, fairly been offered. Bids there, opportunity on either side. At 780, 90 now. At 90 and 800 beckons now. At 800,000, fairly been offered. Even money at 8. At 800 the bid. At 800,000 the bid's there. At 10 now, at 810,000, 20 if you like. At 810,000, fairly been offered. At 30 now, at 830. At 830 the bid. At 830,000 bids there. At 830. At $830,000 the bid. Bid there. Opportunity here and there. At 830. At 40. Got at 840,000 and 50 now. At 850 we are on the market. We do sell here today. At 850,000 the bids here. The keys are here. At 850, make absolutely no mistake about it. If you've come to buy, now is the time. Bid me now or forever hold your peace. At 850 the bid. The bid's here. The keys are here. We sell once. At 850, at 60, welcome, best of luck, never too late. To that 70 now at 870,000, at 875, at 875 and 80 now at 880,000, at 880,000, fairly been offered. We're selling here today at 90 now at 890,000, raises stakes at 90, at 890,000, we are on the market, we sell, we play for keeps, at 890 in the bids here, at 890,000, at 90.
900.
At 900,000 now. At 900,000, even money. Don't let it scare you off. It's just a round number. At 900,000, fairly been offered. Bid here. Keys are here at 9. At 900,000. So, ma'am, are we done over here?
Think about it.
900，再加1万。
At 900,000?
Yeah, 900,000.
At 900 I have. At 900,000, if you're here to buy, I need to know 900,000. Are we done here? At 900,000, fairly been offered. Once at 900,000, all done.
905, Rob.
At 905, and welcome back at 95 and 10, the quick retort. At 910,000. At 910,000. Was that a bid, sir? Was that a bid? No. If you come to my auction and put your hand up, I'm going to take your money. At I'll give you one warning, sir. At 910 now. At 910 bids with you. At 910,000, fairly been offered. At 910 the bid. At 15 now. At 915. At 920 now. At 920,000 was that here, Geo? At 920. At 920, nice strong bid in here today. $920,000 the bid. At 920 the bid. Bid there. Keys there. We sell once at 920 done. Twice at 920, done and finished.
25.
At 25 at 9 1/4. At 925 the bid. At 930 now. At 930,000. At 930,000 the bid. See how we're on the market, we're selling, we're absolutely sure there. At 930,000, fairly been offered. At 930 the bid. At 930,000 bid there, keys there. We done now?
Yeah, we're done.
Definitely done. Thank you very much for your bidding here today. At 930,000, sir, ma'am, are we done over here? At 930, bid here, keys here. Definitely out?
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your bidding here today. At $930,000 the bid. We're on the market. We sell. Bids there. Keys there. First call at 930, all done. Second call at 930, done. Finished. Third, final call. $930,000 the bid, all done, all finished, all silent out at 930. Everyone else tells me they're out. If you say you're out and I have your best here today, I'll sell over there. Yes or no? Got to dig deep if you want to buy. Definitely done. Last chance. Need to know. At 930,000. Once, twice, third, final call at 930. Are we done? Finished, silent out, definitely done. Thank you very much for your spirited bidding here today. At 930 we are selling, 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 sold. Congratulations and well bid. Please join me in congratulating our purchasers and our vendors here today. You've just witnessed another successful Harcourts, Rata and Co auction. Have a great weekend. See you again soon. Thank you.